Here's just a really basic flow example. The ask from the customer was to have it so when they create a task that the task is automatically related to an account based on the contact that's associated with the task. So the way I've done that is to set up a flow that is a before save flow so that it runs quickly. And I'm just going to go over how I typically set up flows, which may be different than what other people do. I When I make my decision points, I always try to phrase them such that they are yes and no questions. So I start out by saying, is related to contact. So is the task that's coming in even related to a contact, because it may be related to a lead or to a queue, and we don't want to even bother with those situations. So a task has something called a who ID, and it has a what ID. The who ID is always one of those three, like a contact, lead, or queue. I suppose we're a user as well. But I just checked to see, does it start with 003? 003 is the magic three letters that all contacts in Salesforce start with. And I boil that down to the yes. So when I come in here, I quickly create a yes. I give it my name. I always name these things yes, and then the name of the API of the decision step that I'm on, so that when I'm looking through logs, it's very clear. And then I always change default to say no. So then I come down that yes path. This is related to a contact, and then I check to see, does this already have a what ID? And the what ID is what is the related to thing. So this could be related to any sort of record in Salesforce, and I don't want to overwrite if this is already pointing to something else. So if it already has an ID, which means if it's not blank, if blank is false, that's the yes, and there's my no. And then I continue down the no path, and in order to get the account, I first have to get the contact that it's associated with. So I do a get records on that using the who ID and looking for that matching ID of the contact. And then I only get the one record. And I like to handle the faults whenever I can inside of these record triggered flows, just to make sure something weird doesn't happen. Like maybe somehow the user doesn't have access to query contacts, maybe. I can't imagine why that would be, but we wouldn't want inserting a task to fail because it can't get the contact. And there's a few different techniques that you can do to handle a fault, but actually have it really do nothing. I used to create an Apex class, and an Apex class, it basically did nothing. But in this case, I don't want to create Apex, and I just do another get record, and I just try to get the record that is currently being processed, thinking that if they've gotten this far, they must be able to query the record itself again, and that this should be a relatively safe operation. So I just do a get record on the task that's being processed, and just looking for that same ID. So now if something bad happens, it should gracefully exit. And then lastly, I just set the what ID to the account ID of that get contact. And I guess the last thing I really didn't show you is making sure that this is set to the fast fields. This is, I call it a before update. I think maybe it used to be called that and they renamed it. So this is basically a very fast operation. I've done timings between the two, and it's like 10 times faster to use it this way. Doing it the other way would work. It gets into order of operations as well as performance, but whenever you can use the fast field updates, I would recommend doing that. So that's it. This is just an overview of a basic flow to try to streamline something that people have been doing by hand in their org to just try to save them a few moments of their life so they can get better work done. Thanks for watching. Have fun.